Yo, what's going on, guys? Today, it's just me on this episode. Um, you know, it's just me, so I figured, it's time to do my playoff predictions, and that's part of the reason why, because I feel like if I had someone else here with me, it would probably be a really long episode, and I always like to do a mini game at the end too, so you got to factor that in. So it's just gonna be me. Might seem like a boring episode a little bit, but I don't think so because everyone's excited for the playoffs, so it should be fun. But I'm also gonna give my award picks. If you guys remember, I did that last year in this episode, and that's just what I'm gonna be doing today. And I'll kind of explain each thing a little bit. But here we go, I guess. So let's start with the award picks. I think I'm going to go in reverse order, starting with the Clutch Player of the Year, which seems like maybe the least exciting award because it's the newest one. And I know there's candidates like Curry and DeMar DeRozan, but I think it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Because, at least for me, if you're a clutch player and recognized as such, I feel like your team needs to have some success to back it up a little bit. And while the Warriors were the 10 seed and they did have a pretty good record, it just seemed like they lost a lot of clutch games. I think actually they lost the most clutch games of anyone this year. And then as for the Bulls, we're 4 games under 500. As much as I would like to give DeMar DeRozan the award, I just feel like, Shai, he's been big down the stretch of games. The Thunder have been one of the best teams down the stretch of games. And I think he's one of the leading scorers in the clutch this year. Obviously, he would qualify. And just overall, he's been one of the better players this year. So I'm going to give my Clutch Player of the Year award to Shai. Now, Coach of the Year, this one was a little bit tough because I feel like on any year, a 64-win coach pretty much should get the Coach of the Year, and that would be Joe Mazzulla. But I didn't pick him, and it actually stays with the same theme. I'm going to go with Mark Daigneault for the Thunder. I think part of Coach of the Year is like maybe expectations that they had for you the year before. You think like when Dwayne Casey won it, like no one thought the Raptors would be the 1 seed, or maybe when Thibodeau won it with my Bulls, like we were the 8 seed the year before, granted all the injuries and, the fact that people probably still didn't think we'd be the 1 seed, and then yet we were. I think that all plays a part in it. And wow, I thought the Thunder were going to be good this year. I thought they'd probably be like a 3 seed or something. I don't know how many people actually believe that same thing. And I think most people didn't think they were going to even be the 1 seed. So I think all those things considered, and I think he's also maybe helped develop guys like Chet and Jalen Williams quicker than anticipated. And really a lot of those guys on the bench, it's a really young team, second youngest team in the NBA. And the fact that they're up there doing what they're doing, it relates a little bit, I think, to the Thunder of the past when they had like Durant, Westbrook, and Harden, and they were already on the same level with a lot of these other top teams when they were one of the youngest teams in the league too. So Mark Daigneault is my Coach of the Year. Now, most improved player, it's tough. It's a tough one. But I've been thinking a lot about this over the last few days, and I think I will give it to Kobe White, actually. Obviously the other person I was considering was Tyrese Maxey, but I think Kobe White deserves it. He's had the biggest jump in scoring this year as a playmaker. His stats have jumped as well, but his efficiency has also gone up all the way around the board. And I think he's a most improved candidate because when Zach LaVine went down, I think a lot of people thought we were just going to fold and it's over and time to restart. But, Kobe White kind of came out of nowhere and started putting up crazy performances. And as a result, we pretty much ended up right where we were last year. And, one could argue that maybe the vibes of the team were a little bit better than they were last year throughout the remaining course of this season. So I think he deserves a lot of recognition. Because not only that, but he was asked to still. I think people forget last year he was actually becoming like the point guard of the team. Like when we got Patrick Beverley, like Kobe White was becoming the point guard of the team, and Pat Bev even said like this is his like team to control next year and stuff like that. But not only is he having to do that, but he also has to take the load of Zach LaVine's scoring ability. And I would say he did that better than him in the games LaVine played this season, because LaVine might have scored more at a higher volume, but it was really inefficient compared to what Kobe White's done this season. So I think the fact Kobe White's really been a reliable like second option and some nights a first option, I got to give him the award. And Tyrese Maxey, the only thing that really holds him back, I think, is that he was already a really good player last year. And while he did kind of become an all-star for the first time this season, I think maybe that does hurt his case in a most improved scenario. So I'm going to actually give this one to Kobe White. I guess next we can do Rookie of the Year. This one should be obvious. It's Victor Wembanyama. Literally no rookie has done the things that he's done in a while. Like, seriously, this is probably maybe of the last 10 years, maybe you could say Luka, if you want to say Donovan Mitchell because of the playoff success too. Like, there isn't really a whole lot of rookies that have had like a better season, or I guess comparable season to Wemby. I mean, I haven't even given my defensive player of the year yet, but he's going to be in that contention as well, and maybe he's even my winner. The only other person that's really in the conversation, I think, is Chet, but he's not even really in the conversation anymore. Let's just stop lying, because Wemby is, I think, better on all levels. The only thing that really Chet has going for him in this award is that his team is better. And I mean, let's not lie to ourselves. If you put Chet on San Antonio and you put Wemby in OKC, the teams would see just the same success, if not more, in OKC, and the Spurs would still not be a great team. I mean, the Spurs are just not a great team. So I'm going with Wemby. I feel like this one's pretty obvious. I don't have to explain it all too much. But next one is the Sixth Man of the Year. And I think there's a lot of candidates for this one, but I still am going with Malik Monk. I think with Malik Monk, like, Naz Reid has also kind of been in contention with him. And while he is a worthy candidate, the reason I think Malik Monk deserves it is that he has to be the second playmaker, second shot creator on his team. Like, people might say Sabonis is more so like a playmaker and this and that, but like, he's mostly a playmaker off finding people that are cutting. He's mostly standing with the ball and watching people cut as they're making their moves. Malik Monk, like, he has to like create off the dribble. And I think not only that, but he has to create off the dribble, on the fly, like quick passes, stuff like that in transition. And I think you've seen the Kings, like, and the end of the year wasn't pretty for them because he was out. Like, they were sitting in like 5th or 6th or whatever, and they slide all the way down to the 9th seed at the end of the regular season. So I just think that, like, they need him big time. Now, Naz Reid, it's a little bit of the opposite. Like, he stepped in when Cat was out and they were still staying afloat. But I think that most of their success still came when it was Ant and Cat and Gobert's defensive prowess as well, like, leading the way, than Naz Reid kind of filling it. Like, I think even if Naz Reid wasn't there, and let's say Kyle Anderson was just taking those minutes, would they have been a worse team? Probably, because Naz Reid, in my opinion, is better than Kyle Anderson. But I think that it wouldn't have been as dramatic than if the Kings are without Malik Monk and what you've seen. So, and Malik Monk is the leading scorer off the bench this season, so I'm going to go with him for my sixth man. Now, the Defensive Player of the Year, speaking of Naz Reid and his teammate, Rudy Gobert, I do agree with Wemby. I think this is probably the last one he will win, so let's just give it to him, I guess. But he has played well. Definitely a bounce back from last season. And obviously the Timberwolves are the number one defense. And most of the time that Gobert has led a number one ranked defensive team, he has won the award. And I think you're going to see that again this year. Now, I don't think there will be another year where he will win it. And Wemby might win it as soon as next season. Like, I don't think that's a crazy hot take. And I honestly think, like, you know, as much as Gobert and Wemby have been getting a lot of talk for it, I think Anthony Davis still deserves some credit, because while they're not a high-ranked defense, it's like they go from maybe an okay or respectable defense when he's there to absolutely terrible when he's not there. So like they were giving up like 120, 130 points to like the Rockets, the Nets, the Spurs after they lost 18 straight games. So I think he definitely deserves some credit. I think all these guys should be all defensive this season. But I do think that Gobert will take home the trophy. And then for my MVP, it's tough. There's a lot of good candidates, but ultimately it's hard to choose against Nikola Jokic. You know, Luka has honestly had a crazy statistical season. I mean, leading the league in scoring, averaging 34 points and less than 1 rebound off and 1 assist off of a triple-double. Like, that's kind of unheard of. The thing that hurts him is that I think that the first half of the season wasn't as good as the second half of the season that he had. And not just him, but just the team overall. It's a little bit similar to like James Harden in 2019 when, you know, he was putting up 30-point game after 30-point game, but the start of the year they were like 11-14, and I think they were like the 13 or 14 seed. So it's like that's almost a third of the season where it's like they're not anywhere in the picture of being a successful team. Even though they did work their way up, but I think like that all counts when you're looking at someone who's been consistent all year long. Now, while Shea and the Thunder, they've been more consistent all year long too, just like Jokic and the Nuggets. I just think that with Jokic, first of all, he does a lot more. Maybe Shea is leading the league in steals per game. I do think Jokic is still a good defender. Maybe not a super duper mobile defender, but he has great hands as well. But I mean, this is a guy who's leading the league in plus minus. He's top 5 in points, in rebounds, and assists. I mean, he's leading his team in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and I think he's second in blocks. So who else is doing that in the NBA? And who else has done that in NBA history and hasn't won the MVP? I mean, this is like, let's not forget, yeah, the Thunder are the 1 seed, but it's a tie with the Nuggets. Like, if the Nuggets had won one other game this season, the Nuggets would be the 1 seed. But they're literally tied. So I feel like maybe if it was like the Thunder had won like 63 games and the Nuggets had won 53 games, okay, then we can have a discussion like that. But considering they're tied, and while the Thunder did get the tiebreaker head-to-head, like, I just think it is kind of lame, like, to hold that against Jokic. You know, and also the other thing I think, too, is that the fact that it's even a discussion should almost tell you that Jokic should deserve it, because he's also won 2 other MVPs, and he's won a Finals MVP. Whereas we have a guy like Shea who's really, you know, last year he was All-NBA first team, but he's really never, like, won these prestigious awards like this. So it would be something new. I think a little bit, maybe you're seeing that with Jalen Brunson, who does deserve to be All-NBA. I would say he should be All-NBA second team, but I think lately at the end of the year, you're seeing people saying he should be first team, and that might be a little bit extreme. I wouldn't say that, but like I think that's kind of the same vibe I'm getting. So I would say Jokic is my MVP. But now we can get on to the playoffs. This should be good. Starting off in the East, we got the Celtics against Heat. I'm going with Boston in 5 games. You know, it just like they're going to have the health edge, first of all, the Celtics. But I also think like they kind of want to maybe rebound a little bit off how last season went. You know, they got maybe a proven champion in Drew Holiday. They got probably more size, I would say, on their team this year. And yeah, they can be inconsistent at times, but I do feel like they will get the job done here. They will have a game, though, where they're like oh no, like we forgot how to play basketball, and so that's why it can't put a sweep. But I do think the Celtics will win this series in 5 games. Moving on to the 4-5 in the East, the Cavs and the Magic. This should be a good series. It's really hard because I think the Cavs have a little bit of the experience edge, but Orlando, they are very similar to that Knicks team last season. And I think it'll be a 7-game series, but I will go with the Cavaliers, and that's not really even a confident pick because I think Orlando can win this series. I just really don't know what to expect out of mostly Jared Allen and Evan Mobley in this series. And I guess to be fair, you don't know what to expect out of Paolo or Franz or Wendell Carter because these guys have never been to the playoffs either. But I feel a little bit more confident with their front line because they can actually create their own shot on offense more so than having guys like Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland have to do it for them on the other side of things. And it kind of it limits what their capabilities are. So I will go with the Cavaliers in 7, but I will say I can see either result. Honestly, I could see either team winning this in 5 games too because I could see the Cavs just washing them with the experience away, and then Orlando's just I don't know, and the lights are too bright for them. I could also see Orlando winning this in 7. I could see Orlando winning this in 5 games if things get ugly for the Cavs too. So I'm gonna go with Cavs in 7 though. Then we got the 2-seeded Knicks and the 7-seeded 76ers. I think this is probably the most interesting matchup in the first round, and people maybe don't realize it. There's a lot of good candidates for that, but the reason this is the most interesting is you got one team in the Knicks who, Tibbs all season long, has kind of had to run these guys into the ground. And part of that is not really too much his fault this time around just because they've had so many injuries. I would compare it to that 2012-2013 Bulls season that I remember. So it's a little bit like that. It's just that instead of having Nate Robinson, you have Jalen Brunson. No, but Nate was a great too. But anyways, but there's that factor. And then for the Sixers, it's Joel Embiid is just coming back. So you don't know really how he's going to hold up throughout the duration of a full game and stuff like that. So I think either team could get gassed in this series. But also the Sixers have literally not lost a game since Embiid came back. And then as for the Knicks, it's they've kind of ended the year on a hot streak too. I mean, they ended the year with 50 wins. So, I mean, that's the first time they've done that since that same season I was just referencing, 2012-2013 with Melo and J.R. Smith and Stoudemire and those guys. So, Tyson Chandler. So, I think it's going to be a tough series. But I do think it will go to 7 games as well. But I think that maybe with those two concerns, I think you have to be a little bit more concerned for Philly. So I'm going to go with the Knicks in 7. I just feel like Embiid will get really tired. He hasn't really taken off too many games since coming back. So I don't know. I think the Knicks have kind of more been acclimated to playing those games as well. So it's just tough. So now the 3 seed and the 6 seed in the East, we got the Bucks and the Pacers. This is a good one, and it's also a little bit interesting because obviously the Pacers have owned them in the regular season, but all those games were before Doc Rivers was there. So being how weird maybe a Doc Rivers system is, maybe that could all flip. Now, of course, Giannis is going to start the series off not playing, so that does hurt their chances a little bit. But you also got to realize this is a Pacers team where outside of maybe Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam, most of their key players don't really have a whole lot of playoff experience as well. And of course, this is a new system for Siakam as well. And Miles Turner, he hasn't been there since 2020. So it's been quite a while, I would say. So I'm still gonna go with the Bucks in this series, and I think I'm gonna go with them in 6 games. They have way more talent, I think overall, and I think this is actually going to be a good series, maybe to get Chris Middleton a little bit back in the groove of things. But people forget, like, you have Damian Lillard on your team. Like, it's not just like the team from last year or something. Like, Damian Lillard has been in this position before where he needs to be the number one option. He's done it in Portland. He has the all-time playoff record for threes made in a game. He had a 55-point playoff game. So, like, I don't get why people think, oh, well, Giannis isn't there, it's over for the Bucks. It's not over for the Bucks. Even if Giannis missed the whole series, would it be harder without him? Of course it's going to be harder without him. But I think that having Damian Lillard, I think Chris Middleton will find his groove again. And I feel like Brook Lopez and Miles Turner, like, there's a good chance Brook Lopez could win that matchup as well. I'm going to go with the Bucks in 6. Now in the Western Conference, we got the 1-seeded Thunder going against the 8-seeded Pelicans. I'm going to go with the Thunder in 6 games. It will be a little bit scary because, like, as I've said, even with, throughout the year with them being the second youngest team, the Thunder don't really have that experience edge. I mean, outside of, like, Gordon Hayward, who on that team has really had big playoff games or, like, been in a lot of playoff moments. I know Shea has made it before a couple times, but of course it was before Shea was Shea, essentially. And then Lou Dort also made it in the bubble, but he was literally a rookie, and outside of maybe that game 7, like, he didn't really ever have, like, a crazy performance like that. So I just think that the Thunder will get through it. They're going against a team that's been up and down all year long, but I just think that, Shea will figure it out midway through the series. I think they will lose one of their first 2 home games, though, and they'll be like, uh-oh, like, maybe let's be concerned a little bit, but then I think they will figure it out and they will win in 6. Now the 4-seeded Clippers and the 5-seeded Mavericks. Ooh, I was not ready to talk about this one. I think, both these teams have shown extreme highlights throughout the season where it's almost like you could look at them and think, like, man, they're going to be the toughest out in the West. Potentially, you could say that about them. But given where we are right now, I don't like to do it, but, I got to be objective with my picks. But I'm going to go with the Mavericks in 6. It's just the end of the year has been a little bit worrisome, I guess, for the Clippers. They've had a few guys out. But I'm looking at the Mavericks and the way they've ended the season. Like, they've probably ended the season better than anybody in the league. I think getting P.J. Washington and Daniel Gafford, shout out my guy, Daniel Gafford, but getting both of them really bolstered their team, and they've reached new heights as well. Now, also having Kyrie Irving healthy, because he wasn't healthy at the start of the year as much, and that's a big reason why he wasn't an all-star. Otherwise, he really would have been. I think all those things factor into the Mavericks being a much better team in the second half of the season. Now, would I say that it's a foregone conclusion they win this series? No. And honestly, this might be the most entertaining series. And it's like, well, why did you pick it in 6 games? Well, I think they will win at home, the Mavericks, if they do win it. However, you can never count out Kawhi. That's the one thing I will say. So if Kawhi is on the court, you can never count him out. And that would honestly be, like, my only, like, betting card for the Clippers is that, if he's got the ball and he's taking over the game late, like, I feel like he will be the most important player and probably the best player in this series. But just as a team, I mean, like, it's hard to win on your own. And Harden, Westbrook, Paul George, not saying they all will struggle, but they've all shown struggles in the playoffs at points. So it's hard to bet on a team that has had that happen with 3 of their 4 best players. I'm going to go with the Mavericks. So Now the next side of things, we got the 2-seeded Denver Nuggets and the 7-seeded Lakers. Everyone thinks this is going to be a crazy series. It will not. There will be highlights and stuff, but the Nuggets are going to win once again. Now, I don't think it'll be a sweep. I think the Lakers will get one game off of them because obviously they've lost like 8 in a row against them, dating back to last playoffs, this season, and the end of last season. So I think they're a little bit frustrated, and probably the Lakers, I would say, win game 3 in the series. I don't think they would allow themselves to get swept again. However, they're just not as good as the Nuggets, so they're not going to beat them. And I think game 5 makes sense too because Denver will be at home. I just don't know how the Lakers would be able to even win a game at Denver. And so that's automatically you're losing 3 of the first 5 games. And I think Denver will steal one in LA as well. So I'm going to go with the Nuggets in 5 games. And then the 3-seeded Timberwolves and the 6-seeded Phoenix Suns. This is also tough because Timberwolves have had a big season. They've played great. Obviously the Suns have kind of had their number. And I think this is going to be a big series for the Anthony Edwards and Devin Booker debates that go on. So it's really tough. But I think I'm going to go with the Suns in 6. And it's really hard to even say that because I've watched the Suns team all year and they have so many dead weight players down the stretch of them. I think you guys can remember first episode I had a guest on this season. One of the first things we talked about were who are the sorry players on the Suns that need to go. That was one of the very first topics of the season. And I still feel that way. However, they've completely owned the Timberwolves this year. They've blown them out a lot of times. Now, I think the Timberwolves will, get an early win. They're not going to lose the first 2 games at home, obviously. But I think they'll probably split. And then I think the Suns will take care of things at home. And then the Timberwolves will win game 5 back against the wall. And then the Suns will close them out in 6. I think Durant's going to have a big-time series. And because I think last year, really, it never felt like Durant had that, breakout type of game. And even in 2022, you could say the same thing. It hasn't felt like he's had, a breakout playoff performance maybe since 2021 when he was with the Nets. So I think he's going to have a great series in this one. I think they're just going to kind of expose the Timberwolves in the best way they can. So I'm going to go with the Suns in 6. So moving on to the second round, in the East, we got the Celtics and the Cavaliers. I am going with the Celtics in 7. I'm going to go with the Celtics in 7 because I do think that while the Cavs might not have too much experience, I do think that they will get a little bit more confidence from winning a playoff series, first of all. And if they go into this series against Boston, well, all the pressure alleviates off of them, and it's moving over to Boston because Boston is the 64-win team. Cleveland is just some, the rinky-dink team or something like that. So I think that the pressure would come off of them, and I feel like just off when the Cavs and Celtics have played over the last 2 years, and I think the Cavs are an actually better team this season, even if the record doesn't indicate it from last year. But I think they have more shooting on the wing. They got Sam Merrill, they got Yang, Max Strus. So they have more shooting on their team. But comparatively to Boston, they've played pretty well. I mean, they haven't won every game, Cleveland, but they've competed with them pretty well. And I think in a playoff series, it'll be competitive. Maybe game 7 won't be entirely competitive. I think maybe Boston will win that by 13 or something. Not a blowout, but it'd be okay, it's a clear Boston win. But I think up until that point, the series will be competitive, So I'm going to go with the Celtics in 7, and they're going to the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, who will they play? It's either going to be the Knicks or the Bucks, who I have in that 2-3 matchup. And I'm going to go with the Knicks again. They have home court advantage in this matchup. It's just like literally Jalen Brunson this season set a record for the most points by any player scored against the Bucks in a season. And you also got to think well, that's not really too hard. They played them like 5 times because of the in-season tournament and the regular season. That's true, but also prior to expansion, teams would play each other more. So it's like there's also guys that have played the Bucks 7, 8, 9 times in a season, years down the line, like in the 70s and the 60s. They never did that. Like he did it in 5 games, and you got to give him a lot of credit because he actually did do that. And in those games, not only was he scoring, but the Knicks were winning most of them too. Especially like a pivotal game near the end of the year, he completely took over. And I'm pretty sure Giannis was actually playing in that game as well. So it's just like, I don't know. I feel like they're going to have problems with the Knicks playing to that intensity. I'm going with the Knicks in 6 games. It just seems to like a year that is not meant to be for the Bucks. As much as we'd want it to be, it just doesn't seem like a year that's meant to be for the Bucks. So I feel like them losing in the finals or to Boston, would almost seem valid. Them losing to the Knicks would almost seem inexcused. And I feel like they are going to have an inexcused loss in this postseason. Now, on the other side of things, we got the 1-seeded Thunder and the 5-seeded Mavericks. This would be a good series for the Shea and Luka conversations. But at the end of the day, even if we might think that Shea is higher on this year's MVP ladder, he's not a better player than Luka Doncic. He doesn't have more experience in the playoffs and really even prior to the NBA than Luka Doncic. And I just think overall the Mavericks have been playing a little bit better, especially against this Thunder team. There was a game this season where they were down 30 to them, and they still came back and took a 6-point lead. And now I think they ended up blowing it or something. I think they had some injury. I don't remember who it was. But the point is, the fact that they can actually come back against this Thunder team, it's no problem. The fact that they can blow out this Thunder team, it's no problem. It tells me that I think the Mavericks are equipped to beat this Thunder team. And I think they will do it. I'm going to say also in 6 games for this one. I just think that the Mavericks, they've been playing really well. And I think, I would also say, too, whoever won that Mavericks-Clippers matchup would be in the Western Conference Finals. I think OKC's inexperience maybe gets them here, but I think that's probably where it ends. And then we got the Nuggets and the Suns. It's going to be Denver again. I will say 6 games, too, just like last season, but we've seen the theme with the Phoenix Suns where it's their season usually ends with a blowout loss at home. And that's exactly what that would be in a game 6. But I don't know. I just think Denver is the better team. Like I said, the Suns have so many guys on their team where it's I question they're even in the NBA at points. So, Denver is just, I feel like maybe even a little bit of a better team than last season. So I'm gonna go with the Nuggets over the Suns. I feel like this one shouldn't be too hard, but I will say they'll get 2 games because obviously Durant, Booker, maybe even Beal will have a big game. So that's what I'm gonna go with. Now on the final 4 teams in the Eastern Conference Finals, we got the Celtics and the Knicks. This is tough, and I don't want to do it, but I'm going with the Knicks. I just don't believe in the Celtics. As much as everything I said about Milwaukee, I would feel more confident in them maybe if they didn't have Doc Rivers as their coach, especially in a playoff setting to maybe have a blunder that you really shouldn't. But this has been a repeated thing for Boston for several years now. Last year they were down 3-0 to an 8 seed. The year before that, they were up 2-1 in the finals. They lost it. 2 years before that, again, lost to Miami. Losing 4 straight against Milwaukee in a terrible fashion in 2019. And I know not all of those are same coach, same scheme, But for the most part, like at least everyone since like maybe the bubble time, and at least since like 2022, they've had the same guy on their bench, on their coaching staff, Joe Mazzulla, but they've also had a lot of the same players. And I just don't think that this team is equipped for handling adjustments in the same way. I think, Tibbs, and what I will say about Tibbs and the Knicks this season is that while he's a defensive-minded coach, he's actually like implemented a pretty solid offensive system this season if you've been watching. So I feel like their system's a little bit better than maybe the Celtics, who play too much iso ball at times and maybe almost forget like, oh yeah, like if I'm Jaylen Brown, I forgot I have a Jason Tatum on my team. If I'm Jason Tatum, I forgot there's a Jaylen Brown on my team, or I forgot there's a Kristaps Porzingis on my team, or like whatever it may be. I forgot there's shooters like Sam Hauser on my team. Like it seems like there's too much like one-on-one style, and more times than not, that doesn't get you the win in the NBA, unless your offense is almost like a broken cheat code. I think the Rockets in 2018 were probably the best example of that, but we even saw how it bit them in the butt in this series. And I just feel like the Knicks are gonna, they have the one edge that they have is even in the first round, there are a lot of people picking against them, against Philadelphia. There will be a lot of people picking against them against the Bucks. There will be probably the most people picking against them against the Boston Celtics. And I think that factor of being like an underdog usually brings out the best in a lot of the players on this team. Not even just Jalen Brunson, but like Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo. I think they have bigs that can play physical and make it really tough on someone like Porzingis to hit his stride. So I'm going to actually go with the Knicks in 6. I think this is the third straight matchup. I think I put Knicks in 7 for the first round. But I think they will win this one in 6 games. So, yeah, I'll have them in the finals. Now, who will they play? It's going to be either the Denver Nuggets or the Dallas Mavericks. And this will be a really good series because I think this is the best chance that Luka has had up until this point in his career to make some noise. And I think if they get this far as well, like I feel like Kyrie Irving's going to have a great postseason in general, but I feel like he'll be a difference maker in this series. Having said that, it's hard to bet against the Nuggets. And I think the Nuggets will win this. I will say this will go to 7 games, though. I think that they will test them a little bit. But I just don't I don't know if the Mavericks will beat the Nuggets. I think the Nuggets have just a system overall that's been start to finish this whole year successful. I think that they're battle tested as well. While Luka is and while Kyrie is, you could argue maybe some of these other guys on the Mavericks are not. And so because of that, I'm a lean in favor of Denver. So it leads us to an NBA Finals where the Denver Nuggets, defending champions, are back. And I have them going against the New York Knicks, weirdly enough. Could not have said that at the beginning of the year because I literally just had a video come out where I said they wouldn't even make the playoffs. But having seen the way they've played this year, and especially to end the season, like it's just hard to put your eggs in any other basket of any other team. So I'm going to go with between the Nuggets and the Knicks. I do think the Nuggets will win, and they will be the champions once again. At this point, the Knicks, they finally come across a team that not only has a system and not only plays the right way, but they're just also a more talented team than the Knicks. And I think that, it would be impressive in itself if the Knicks did get this far, because I could even see them wearing out against Philly. Like I said, everything could be wrong here if they lose in the first round against the 76ers if they're too gassed. But, I do think they will push through it. I honestly would not be surprised if, because of how many minutes they're playing, if they do suffer another injury or two along the way. Now, obviously, if that were to happen to, Jalen Brunson, then they're probably finished. But I do think that this team has a chance to get to the finals, but they just can't beat the Nuggets. No team pretty much goes through the whole playoffs with limited bodies And we even know how Tibbs plays his guys anyways, so they're going to be exhausted regardless. But I just think Denver is the better team. I think it will be a little bit more of a challenge, though, than last year's finals. Because I think the Knicks, they might win like game 2, and they might even win one at home. And then Denver will have to turn it to another notch. Maybe the last 2 games will be kind of boring because Denver will probably win each one by like 15 points or more. But I think the Nuggets will be champions once again. And I think Nikola Jokic will go back-to-back as the finals MVP. So those are my predictions for this season with the awards and the playoffs. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know like what predictions you have that are different than mine down below. And also like what predictions maybe you think I would get right or would get wrong, whatever it may be. But I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of different scenarios in this playoffs that, I mean, even the 8 seeds have a chance to make some noise. You know what I mean? So like it's not like out of the picture. Like anything could really happen. And I guess the only way to find out is to see for ourselves. So like I said, should be fascinating. But yeah, again, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching, and I'm out. Peace.